told to go back home. But the new guy is a radical Islamist, so why are all those people in Britain cheering for a jihadi? And
today, the Prime Minister has announced an additional £11 million of humanitarian support for Syrians.
Why has Keir Starmer just given him £11 million to get him kick-started? In other news...
Mohsin has a rare genetic disease which is gradually destroying his body.
It's time to ban first cousins from getting married and be honest about what culture is really doing it. Also,
we have an extensive challenge with the backlog, meaning that asylum accommodation is too often using very expensive hotels.
Oh, you won't believe this. Labour has just removed another deterrent. They're going to let illegal immigrants stay longer in hotels so that they don't possibly ever end up homeless. I mean, hotels like these.
NHS! We've got the NHS in here.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Ridiculous. They won't be getting cold this winter, will they? But unfortunately, the elderly will.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while Keir Starmer's warm.
Well, there's a bid to get that song Freezing This Christmas to #1. It's a parody by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers, and... say hello to digital ID cards. In fact, you might now need one just to go to the pub. On my panel tonight is Daily Express columnist Carol Malone. We've got journalist Benjamin Butterworth and broadcaster Esther Krakow. Oh, and here is New York City this Christmas, yeah? Here's Paris this Christmas. Oh, lovely. And here is Sadiq Khan's London. Flipping out, honestly. What a shambles that is. What a shambles. Get ready, Britain, here we go. I think it might be time for Syrian refugees to go back home. Next.
Good evening. It's just gone 9 o'clock. These are your headlines from the GB Newsroom. The Prime Minister has said Britain and its allies must be intensely focused on the transition to a new regime in Syria amid fears of a resurgence of Islamic State. It comes as the UK has paused all Syrian asylum claims. It follows France, Germany and Austria saying they would pause decisions on asylum requests from Syrian citizens until the political situation in the Middle Eastern country became clearer. Speaking today, the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper confirmed the UK would be assessing the situation.
Know that the situation in Syria is moving extremely fast after the fall of the Assad regime. We have seen some people returning to Syria, but we also have a very fast-moving situation that we need to closely monitor. And that is why, like Germany, like France and like other countries, we have paused asylum decisions on cases from Syria while the Home Office reviews and monitors the current situation.
In other news, US media is reporting that a man is being questioned in connection with the fatal shooting of a US healthcare CEO in what's being believed to be a targeted assassination. 26-year-old Luigi Mangione is being detained over the fatal shooting of United Healthcare Chief Executive Brian Thompson. Speaking today in New York City, the New York City Police Commissioner, Jessica Tisch, gave an update on the situation. Former US Marine Daniel Penny has been acquitted of a homicide charge for putting a homeless man in a fatal chokehold, a case that sparked weeks of protests and reignited debates over race. After 5 days, jurors declared Mr. Penny not guilty in the death of 30-year-old Jordan Neely on a New York City train on the 1st of May 2023. According to witnesses, Neely's behaviour was erratic and insanely threatening. When Neely allegedly shouted, "I'm going to kill you," Penny put him in a chokehold to restrain him and protect passengers. The chokehold lasted for 6 minutes and resulted in Neely being rushed to hospital and then declared dead. And Jay-Z has dismissed allegations that he raped a 13-year-old girl alongside Sean Diddy Combs in the year 2000 as a blackmail attempt. The lawsuit filed in New York claims the pair drugged and assaulted the accuser after the MTV Video Music Awards while a female celebrity watched. In a statement, Jay-Z called the allegations heinous and accused the claimant's lawyer of exploiting the case for financial gain. The accuser is seeking damages, while Combs, who faces separate charges, remains in custody. Jay-Z said his only heartbreak is for his family as they face public scrutiny over the claims. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's time to ramp up the repatriation. Let's get those flights to Damascus loaded up and on the runway. Now, there are roughly 30 to 40,000 Syrian refugees in the UK. Well, they can go back home now, can't they? Assad has fallen. The regime they fled from has gone. And many Syrians seem rather happy about that. In fact, they are out on the streets partying. So apparently that was a part of Manchester. Here's Trafalgar Square in London. Lovely stuff. And we're already seeing Syrians in Turkey and Lebanon get in their cars and head back to their homeland. Surely anyone who was granted asylum or refugee status here on the grounds that they had to flee the conflict in Syria can now go home, especially those on benefits. Germany allowed around 1.2 million Syrians in. They're now suspending asylum claims. So is France and Austria. In fact, Austria is actually starting a programme to deport people back to Syria right away. And Germany's already offering chartered flights now. Some Irish Syrian refugees can't wait to go home.
We can come back to our homes now. Families waiting for us to come back, pay a visit.
Pay a visit? Or, you know, go there and stay there. How has our government handled this situation, though? Well, they've ballsed it up, haven't they? Our Home Secretary decided to pause decisions on Syrian asylum cases. Good, good. But nobody told the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, who was in the House of Commons taking urgent questions. This is what he had to say when he was asked by Richard Tice if we were actually suspending asylum claims.
I have to say that has not been put to me in the last few hours. The issue that's been put to me is the humanitarian need in country, the humanitarian support for neighbours. And I think the consensus of this House and the significant funds that we have supported Syria with should reassure people of our content to support people on the ground in the region.
Right, OK, so it's really good to see that our Home Office and our Foreign Office is communicating so well, isn't it? What we have done is give 11 million quid just today to the new Syrian leader, who happens to be an Islamist with ties to Al-Qaeda. Well, it doesn't seem to bother the people celebrating on the streets of Britain, though, does it? So, to the Syrian asylum seekers and refugees in Britain, hey, look, thanks for the memories. Thank you. But your home country urgently needs doctors and engineers now. Perhaps it's time for you to head back home. Let's get the thoughts of my brilliant panel this evening. We've got journalist and broadcaster Esther Krakow, we've got political commentator Benjamin Butterworth, and we also are joined by the Daily Express columnist Carol Malone. Carol, what do you make of this then? Should we be starting to repatriate some people who we have granted asylum and refugees?
Absolutely, yes. You know, I think it's a natural reaction for people to want to go home. You know, I'm married to a Bosnian, and when the war, as soon as the war was over there, people wanted to go back immediately, even though there was no infrastructure, there was no power, there's no water. People want to go back to their homeland. But the ones that don't, I'm afraid they will probably have to go back. They got into this country on the basis that they were fleeing war and persecution, and if that no longer exists, yes, of course, they should go back. I find it astonishing that our Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, didn't know that we were put... I mean...
It's comical, isn't it?
He's as thick as mince, this bloke. Seriously.
Well,
but
he... not here to defend himself.
Well, it doesn't matter if he's here to defend himself.
What's the defence look like?
The fact he does not know, you know, that have been paused. Now, you mentioned Germany before. Germany has a scheme now where people are given, Syrians particularly, were giving temporary visas, which is a good idea. Now, you can't stop laughing at the thick as mince thing, can you?
No,
you can't get the vision out of your head, can you? Or are you just laughing at me generally?
No.
Okay.
It's all good. I'm glad you just drew more attention to it. But anyway,
okay.
So you think the best thing to do...
I'm sorry, our Foreign Secretary, I'll take back the comment. Our Foreign Secretary should know whether application asylums have been paused. Anyway, yeah.
Okay,
I'm done.
Good start, strong start.
Well,
so, Benjamin, is surely anyone out there celebrating, waving this new Syrian flag out on the streets? Whoopee, fantastic, Assad's gone. All right, then you can go back home now, no?
Well, I think many of them want to go home. So, you know, there's only about 30,000 of them here. And actually, if you look at the stats, a third of the Syrians in the UK have left since 2019. You know, once ISIS was defeated in Syria, they have been going back there anyway. So I think this isn't going to be a great struggle to persuade them. There will be Syrians because, of course, you know, Syria has lots of educated people from wealthy, cultured backgrounds. People are doctors and opticians and dentists in this country. And, you know, it's in our interests for those people to stay here. So I don't think we should force everyone to go back home when some of them are highly skilled people. But I think there is a nuance here, which is that just because they're Syrian doesn't mean that they have the same situation going back home. You know, you have the Kurds in Iraq and Turkey and Syria. They may well still face persecution. The Christians, you know, the people that have taken over are likely to persecute Christians.
They're right.
Should those Syrian Christians stay here?
I'm almost certain they're not the ones out on the street celebrating now because they know what's going to happen to them.
I don't think that's right, because the Christians in Syria have been celebrating because they're just glad to turn a page on the guy that gassed his own people.
Yeah, I just really do.
I mean, I think the expectation of wanting Syrians to return makes sense in the same way that we expect Ukrainians to return. However, they're not returning to the same situation as the Ukrainians were. They're returning to a region that's been known for being unstable for many decades. I actually think the issuing of asylum status or refugee status should actually be done more scarcely, because when you can't forcibly return refugees. It's called it breaches international law because it's called refoulement. And once you accept someone as a refugee in your country, you can't force them back.
So that's it now.
That's the nation.
Which is
exactly.
Interesting because I believe we accepted 99% of claims from Syrian refugees.
Well, exactly. So it should be. We should have a system like the Germans do, which is a temporary visa, which is once it's deemed that the situation in your country has stabilised, you should return. Because once you bring them on a refugee status, that's it. They can't go back.
Don't you think
and once they go back, by the way, they also lose any kind of ties and access to the UK. So it wouldn't be in their interest, for example, if they've had children here that have been going to school here, or if they have access to benefits, which they do.
This is it, yeah.
But I think a lot of Syrians will want to go back. You know, there's a lot of restructuring, rebuilding to be done, and that will mean jobs and money. So they will know they're going back to work, at least. And, you know, if you've... I know this from my husband, who's Bosnian. When your country has been all but destroyed, you want to be part of the rebuild. You want to start again, you know. People will say, and genuine refugees will say to you, I don't want to be a refugee. You know, no one wants to be a refugee in a foreign country. You want to go back to your homeland. And even when it's bad and even when there's nothing there for you apart from work, you want to be part of that rebuild. And I think that's what will happen here.
Do you think that if people refuse, because this is not just a Great Britain problem, this is a kind of a Europe-wide issue.
Bigger in Europe. There's 5.5 million Syrians in Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
In Turkey alone.
But loads. Do you think if those people refuse to go back, even though it's now quote-unquote safe, that they should be forced anywhere? Because that's what the Austrians are apparently considering doing, like literally right now. I think the Germans are using more of a financial incentive. I think they're giving people the equivalent of 1,300 quid or something like that for repatriation flights. But I think from the noises that the Austrians are making are, you don't have a choice. You're going.
That's against international laws.
I mean, after ISIS was defeated, Denmark said, you're all right now, off you go. So there's already precedent for a country finding some means to send these people home. I mean, I looked at the cost of flights to Beirut, which is where you'd fly into to get to Damascus. When I went there a few months ago, it was about just before the disruption, it was like 150 quid with the cheap flights you can get. Today, you're looking at £1,600. The price of flights to get back to Lebanon, to get into Syria, are through the roof, which suggests that a lot of people are already...
I think if people are on
they would likely actually go through Turkey, which is... And I mean, you know, the Germans, we're talking about 30,000 Syrians here in Britain. The Germans are dealing with 1.2 million.
Yeah.
The Turks are dealing with 3 million, which has actually had an impact on sort of populist politics in Turkey. So it's not just about having these people there. It actually impacts domestic politics. If you don't have direct consent with the population that you're importing these people on. But again, I think it's the whole the asylum system and how it's classed in international law. Why go through all the faff of trying to break international law when you just class them something different? Don't call them refugees or asylum seekers. Call them, you know, temporary visitors for reasons of their own security or safety. And then when the situation is stabilised, they can go back.
This was always one of my issues about the migrant crisis in Europe. So I went to Turkey, which obviously got borders with Iraq and with Syria. This was years ago when ISIS was kind of in its pomp. Travelled down the Jihadi highway a little bit, and there were loads of people.
Is that
there.
the official name?
There were loads of people there who were in camps on those borders and wanted to go home. And the glaringly obvious problem was, once you allow all of these people to come into Europe and settle roots in Europe, then the chances are they're probably not going to go home. Now, quite a few of them might, but I do wonder whether or not the ones who are in this country who are on benefits, who the taxpayer is paying for, so these people who are not paying for...
Why would you? Because of the nature of their status.
Should they now be sent back? You're on benefits, you can go
because,
home
you know, I fear there will be another wave of Syrians coming here. I mean, where some might go that are here already. I think there's going to be another wave. You know, Christians might come here if the jihadis take hold out there. So you're going to have a lot of different religious factions wanting to come here on the basis they're going to be persecuted. So, yes, I mean, I think people could... You know, if this country, and many others do, if they take people in on the basis that they're fleeing war and persecution, that can all... can be forward. It can't be a lifetime on benefits in this country. So if that's what they're doing, yes, they should be made to go back.
But the danger is that now maybe the Christians would be OK, but the people that might be fleeing now will be the supporters of Assad, the other extremists that will now maybe legitimately be, facing persecution in Syria. But does that qualify them to be a refugee in Britain? And we shouldn't take those people.
Yes, because under our current laws, yes, it would. And this is one of the things that people have been shouting about for absolutely ages. Because if you face any kind of persecution pretty much in your own country, including being things like a political prisoner, or just in many cases, frankly, worse economic situation than you are now, you can basically be granted asylum.
Well, I mean, maybe we shouldn't be granting asylum to supporters of Assad, the most murderous regime over the past 50 years.
I think the thing is, it's kind of like choosing between, like, feces and a turd, really. If Islamists
have beaten Assad...
I mean, just saying. I think the biggest elephant in the room, just to move away from the feces analogy, are the Kurds, right? So they technically inhabit a territory that is technically Syria. And the kind of question is, what will happen now that the Assad regime has fallen? Because we know that Erdogan's Turkey has been a prime persecutor of the Kurds, even though they were at the forefront of defeating ISIS. Right. So their status is quite unclear. So if we did see that surge of asylum claimants from Syria, it would likely be the Kurds. And
we have a problem with the Kurds because it's Kurdish forces that are actually guarding 50,000 IS prisoners in the east of the country. So we don't want to pay them off either.
No, but this is why we're not the world's policemen, right? And I've done my best to try and domesticate, localise this particular issue as much as possible, because it is going to affect us. We should not be the only country in Europe that now decides to throw its arms around a load more Syrian refugees, because no other country in Europe appears to be doing that. In fact, quite the opposite. And I hope this is a bit of a wake-up call for us about some of our other actions when it comes to offering asylum to people in the Middle East as well.
Not when we've just given 11 million quid.
But then we give them 11 million quid. All right, well, anyway, look, talking of things we hope we don't give away, here's something we hope we do. It's our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway. Yes, this chance you can win 50 grand in cold, hard, tax-free cash. Is the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could be yours. Here's all the details you need to win a whopping £50,000.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck, everybody. Now I've got a bit of this coming up. Yes, youngsters will be able to use government-backed digital IDs in pubs and bars from next year as part of a broader government plan to move state functions online. So are we just sliding towards a big brother state? But I'm also going to be talking about this. Former Conservative Minister Richard Holden has proposed a new law that could see marriages between first cousins banned. Marrying a parent, child or sibling is currently prohibited, but not first cousins. And the practice is still widespread amongst some communities. So isn't it just about time that we change the law, do you think? Director of the Oxford Institute for British Islam, Dr. Taj Hagi, goes head-to-head with the journalist and broadcaster Khadija Khan. Stay tuned.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Love a bit of baking and share some hot tips. We're delighted to be joined by our baking extraordinaire, Matty Edgell, who won Great British Bake Off last year. Woo! Welcome. Congratulations as well. I'm sure you're sick of being congratulated.
And there's a reminder.
No, you like all the glory.
Yeah.
What was it like winning the Great British Bake Off? What's last year been like for you?
Winning it was I was not expecting to win. At any point until they said my name.
You're a very
so it was a nice
guy.
surprise. No, I was just
really
in touch with reality. I wasn't.
Was it quite a close race throughout then?
Yeah, I considered myself the underdog throughout. I think the first week I turned around after the showstopper and kind of saw how good everyone was, and then looked at mine and thought, how have I got here? And that kind of theme followed through.
But then that's surely like an underdog.
Yeah,
it
did.
Actually, I'm going to get better throughout this.
Yeah, I think it made me kind of like really tune into the feedback that they was giving me and trying to embed that throughout. So that's probably why.
Could you feel yourself improving as the series went on?
Definitely, and I think also like kind of simultaneously my confidence improved at the same time, and then that like little bit of belief in myself probably helped out as well.
What was your strength? Biscuits, cake, bread?
I think cake's my strength.
Cake.
I think cake, typically if you start baking, that's probably where you start, isn't it? So that was what I knew most.
How did you start baking?
I've been asked this so many times since...
You don't know?
I attribute it to my nan.
Sweet.
But yeah, I would say, I think most people probably attribute it to like a grandparent or something that they maybe done with like their parents when they was growing up. So that's I'll give it to my nan.
Or the major lockdown baking boom.
Yeah, banana bread.
Everybody,
all over the place, isn't it? It's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I love a banana bread, even now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody
in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Yeah, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Coming up, is Britain slowly sliding into a big brother state? But first, should first cousin marriages be banned? It's time now for our head-to-head. So, the former Conservative minister, Richard Holden, has now proposed a change to UK law that could see marriages between first cousins banned. Now, I'll be honest, I thought it was already banned, actually. But under current legislation, marriages to a sibling, a parent or a child are illegal, but first cousin marriage is still common in some UK communities. Holden has claimed that such marriages have been linked to higher rates of birth defects that can also apparently, quote, reinforce negative structures and control women. Indeed, a prevalence of cousin unions amongst British Pakistanis was a contributing factor in child mortality rates in Bradford due to an increased risk of genetic conditions. NHS studies between 2007 and 2011 found that first or second cousin marriages accounted for, are you ready for this, 60% of marital unions in people of Pakistani heritage in Bradford. 60%. This compared with just 1% among white British couples in the same area. So tonight I am asking, should marriages between first cousins really be banned in the UK? Let me know your thought. gbnews.com/your say. We do have a poll on this now at Twitter, at GB News. And can I just say it's a brave person, I think, who says that they shouldn't be banned. But going head-to-head on this now are the director of the Oxford Institute for British Islam, is Dr. Taj Hagi, and the journalist and broadcaster, Kajia Khan. Both of you, thank you very much. Hello and welcome to the show this evening. Dr. Taj, can I start with you, please? Should we ban the marriage of first cousins, do you think?
Well, banning is not always the best option, but I think we need to send out a powerful message that first cousin marriages has detrimental effects, and it has great negative consequences, not only for the offspring of these marriages, but for the families, for society, and of course for the taxpayer and the NHS. So clearly we need to send out a powerful message that this is not something that should be welcomed in Britain. Now, how do we enforce that? That's going to be a big issue, but I think we need to set the message loud and clear that this is not something that we as British people should welcome in the society. Yes, we need to educate people, persuade them that it's not in their own best interest for them not to marry their first cousins.
Yeah, I mean, Khadija, surely it shouldn't take that much persuading, right? I mean, it's terrible for your health. I mean, it should also be a bit stigmatised, to be honest. I mean, it's not normal in British society to marry your first cousin, is it? I mean, how do we stop this? Should we be stopping this?
Well, see, amongst Muslims...
Sorry, I'll just bring in Khadija. Sorry, Khadija.
Sorry.
Cousin marriage has existed for centuries in different cultures, faith, countries. A British royal family and British aristocracy are not an exception in this case. However, in modern times, things have changed. The reality has evolved, and we no longer dwell on the past when it comes to the well-being of general public. Therefore, the excuse to defend or justify the practice of cousin marriage, which has been linked to recessive genetic conditions in children, even on the grounds of religion and cultural beliefs, is not valid anymore. However, the question is how to deal with this issue. Banning the cousin marriage can be counterproductive, in my opinion. This will only spark a variety of disputes and unnecessary controversies rather than addressing the issue at hand. The fact that there has been a decline in cousin marriage in the UK, especially in British Pakistani community, should be given a fair consideration in this debate.
It's still very high, though, Kajid. Sorry, just to say, I mean, 60% of people in Bradford is an unbelievably large number amongst the British Pakistani community. And some people would say that's absolutely outrageous.
I would like to cite this. I would like to cite the same, research. After 10 years, the same research was done, and there has been a decline. And despite being gradual, this reduction is nonetheless occurring, and this is not a result of any law or legislation. Instead, scientific research that has been done over the years on this topic, and social media and modern technology have been very crucial in informing
I mean,
and
sorry, is
educating
there just
young
not the
people.
moral argument that it's actually quite disgusting to marry your first cousin? I'll just say it. Like, I don't really care how many people have decided that they're not going to marry their first cousin anymore, and how many people have decided that we're going to move away from it. I mean, just on a moral argument. I mean, I'll bring you back in here, Dr. Taj. Look, maybe I'm wrong, and I you know me. The last thing I would want to do is sit here in this chair and be deemed to be culturally insensitive. But goodness gracious me, the idea of marrying your first cousin, I think you should be told, no, that's wrong, that's inappropriate, and it's a bit vile, actually.
Can I come in? I think what's important also is that this first cousin marriages often has an element of coerciveness, of coercion behind it. Many of them are arranged marriages, and frequently these arranged marriages veer into forced marriages. And so this is another reason why we should discourage it. And I think banning is maybe an extreme thing, but I think we need to be a major public relations campaign to say, listen, on every level, whether it's personal, social, health, economic, whatever, that it's not in the interest of British people and British society to encourage or to endorse or to allow this type of marriage, carte blanche. Now, Khadija mentioned a very important thing. Yes, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert were first cousins. So was Albert Einstein married his first cousin and so forth. Yes, there are exceptions to the rule, but the point here is about these cousin marriages, consanguineous marriages, it's cumulative. It's generation after generation after generation, and that's the issue. And yes, while there may be some slight drop in the number of first cousin marriages, that's not enough. There's not a big campaign, especially in the Pakistani or Muslim communities. Because, for example, the Muslims are the fundamentalist Muslims or cultural Muslims, they justify cousin marriage because apparently the Prophet Muhammad married his cousin. And so that is the religious green light for them to go ahead with it.
Well, that's a good point and Khadija, I'll give you the final word on this. That's maybe an argument as to why it should be in law, right? Because at the moment, you know, if you are a devout Muslim, then, you know, fair enough, you can say that, well, it can be justified in our religion. But if it's the law of the land that you can't do it, then maybe that's the way that stops.
As Dr. Taj said, that there is no organized campaign going on within the Muslim communities at this moment to discourage cousin marriage. But if you want to see a progressive and rapid change in the attitude, I think we don't need laws. We need freedom to challenge orthodoxical and rigid factors that have been contributing to the prevalence of cousin marriage in the UK. Both boys and girls, they are forced to bear the burden of religious and cultural belief of their parents in close communities. Cousin marriage, child marriage, forced marriage, they are extensions of this tradition. And these kind of practices are retained to prevent young people from violating the so-called honor of family and faith. And then there is a utopian notion of multiculturalism that implies that all cultures deserve to be respected, that shut down the debates on such crucial issues even before they take place. And I would like to also mention that the urge to avoid the discussion on such crucial issues has been euphemized as a community relation. And I think this is the
because
elephant in the room that has been overlooked over the time.
I'm going to have to knock it on the head there because we're out of time. It was a great discussion, but thank you very, very much. I will just say to that point there, I do really think that the reason why people haven't wanted to talk about this is because it's seen as one of the great taboo subjects in British society. Or you can't possibly mention what's going on in Bradford, or you can't possibly mention what might be going on in parts of Birmingham, for example. Well, why not? Because if people are getting ill off the back of it, then we're all paying for it in the NHS, aren't we? And also it's a moral thing. But both of you, thank you very, very much. That was the director of the Oxford Institute for British Islam there, Dr. Taj Hagi, and the journalist and broadcaster Khadija Khan. Look, who do you agree with? Should marriages between first cousins be banned in the UK? Alex on X says, of course they should be banned. Todd says, why weren't they banned already? And Shirley says, stopping marriage between first cousins will not solve the problem. Well, your verdict is in. So we did a poll on this, right? 95% of you think that first cousin marriage should be banned. 5% of you say it shouldn't. I think we might have found the 5% of people there who are married to their first cousins, actually. So there we go. But anyway, well, look, moving on, bit of a shift in tone this, but during Advent, as we count down to Christmas Day, we are hearing from church ministers right across the country. Each day they have a very special message for you to celebrate the festive season.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 9.
Hello, my name is Marjorie and I'm a minister in the north of England. Most of Britain is familiar with the fact that we have a king, a monarch. In 2022, at the age of 73, King Charles ascended to the throne. Jesus Christ is the only person to have actually been born a king, and at Christmas we celebrate his arrival. In Matthew's Gospel, chapter 21, Jesus himself, towards the end of his life, declares his kingship. Behold, your king has come, riding on a donkey, gentle. Yes, his power is completely different to our understanding of power in the world. He did not ascend to power, he simply is power. And what an example of power he gave to us. And that is why, 2,000 years later, many people across our world on a daily basis continue to turn to the person of Jesus Christ. He will not overpower you, but he will empower you to know God. And so we invite you individually to know the presence and the power of Jesus at this Christmas time. And may Great Britain, the United Kingdom, recognize, behold, your king is coming.
Oh, I love those messages. You can go and see all of those special Advent messages at gbnews.com/Advent. Merry Christmas, everybody. So coming up, more than 1 million pensioners are currently skipping meals because they're worried about not having enough money to keep the heating on because temperatures are now plummeting across the UK. That's, of course, after the Prime Minister sparked outrage by ripping the winter fuel payment away from millions of elderly Brits. So has this Labour government left pensioners to freeze and starve this winter? And there's the potential for there to be a Christmas #1 that would at least send some shivers down Keir Starmer's spine. The former editor of The Sun, Calvin Mackenzie, joins me soon, but first... Youngsters will soon be able to use government-backed digital IDs in pubs and bars and supposedly to help you pay your tax on time. But look, is this a slippery slope towards an unrelenting Big Brother nightmare? And won't the elderly be left out in the cold? Co-founder of the Together Declaration, Alan Miller, joins me live and he's next.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Clear skies overnight across the north will allow things to turn very frosty. Also some thick fog patches for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Further south, staying largely dry but quite cloudy. This weather front still generating quite a few showers across the far southeast, parts of Essex, even as far north as Suffolk. Those showers feeding in across Kent, the London area, into parts of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. But away from the southeast, it is generally dry. Clearer skies here. That's where the fog is going to thicken up. Southwest Scotland, also western parts of Northern Ireland. That fog likely to be pretty dense and linger well into tomorrow. For England and Wales, we'll keep a lot of cloud. That'll keep the temperatures generally above freezing. But a wet start for parts of the southeast. Still a few showers coming in, particularly across parts of Kent, feeding all the way down across the Channel Islands too. But elsewhere, generally dry and cloudy for England and Wales. Some frost across Cumbria and certainly further north and west across Scotland and Northern Ireland. The frost widespread and some dense patches of fog. Parts of the central belt, particularly to the west, southwest Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. And where that fog forms through the night, it could be very slow to clear tomorrow. Quite a lot of cloud across the far north. Some drizzly rain heading its way towards Shetland. The showers in the southeast, well, still a few feeding in, but tending to fizzle out generally through the day. Some breaks in the cloud for North Wales, northwest England. Bit of sunshine possible here. Temperatures 6 or 7 Celsius. Still feeling cold with that wind coming in from the North Sea across the southeast. That's still there on Wednesday, as is the possibility of the odd shower across the south. Fog again for parts of southern Scotland and Northern Ireland, and again it could last all day. If it does, temperatures will struggle to get above freezing, but away from the fog, much of Scotland, Northern Ireland having another sunny day on Wednesday. Most of England and Wales staying fairly cloudy. Bye for now.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, coming up, have Labour forced 1 million elderly Brits to skip meals this winter? And it could be a Christmas #1 that will make Keir Starmer shiver. But first, there are warnings tonight that elderly people could be left behind amid a government push to move more state functions online. It's emerged today that youngsters will be able to use government-backed digital ID cards to prove they are old enough to drink alcohol under legal changes that could take effect next year. It's part of a wider technological revolution to move more state functions onto a government-backed app. Brits may eventually be able to prove their identity for everything from paying taxes to opening a bank account, to using the government's app, to drinking, to buying cigarettes, all of that on this single app. So the scheme appears to be edging closer to a unique digital identity cards for citizens, something that the former Prime Minister Tony Blair had long been a proponent of. Well, I'm joined now by the co-founder of the Together Declaration, Alan Miller. Alan, thank you very much. Should we be worried, do you think, about this potential push to a singular online ID card?
I think there's a lot of concerns that we've been talking about for a long time. You know, the idea that on the one hand, you have to show me your papers wherever you go to get in. And then at the same time, that if you don't do certain things, if you don't put the right refuse in the right box, or if you perhaps use a car too much, or if you perhaps say the wrong thing on social media, well, we know people are now going straight to prison for that. But the whole idea that you're digitally tracked, surveyed, and we have a kind of social credit system is a big concern. Now, there are safety measures that can be put in. Their argument with this is that you don't get to see the address and it's separated. But we should remember that the bid has gone out to Fujitsu. This student card's already there. Now, you can use a physical card, but Fujitsu was the company that was actually involved with the post office scandal, with the data breach. So data breaches or, the abuse of those things, human error, but also willfully covering things up. We should remember, Patrick, as well, that the last few years we've had revelations about spies, about censorship, and a range of things like that. So as the push to digital ID increases and as the push towards central bank digital currency increases, this is something that we're saying we need to be able to slow down. We should not have mandatory impositions of it. And it's a concern that's just generalised across society.
Yeah, it's interesting because, look, hey, at the moment, the government are ruling out a lot of the concerns that you're raising here. But there's a very credible case for the slippery slope argument, Alan, and I know a lot of our viewers and listeners will agree with you on that. There is another aspect to this for me, which I do think is important, which is that it's another way of maybe disenfranchising the elderly. I mean, I can't imagine a situation, really, where my grandma, bless her, who tries her best, she's in her mid-80s, would go out somewhere and say, oh, have you got your digital ID? And she'd have to go open a handbag and get her phone out and try and deal. Maybe a nightmare. It's also quite dangerous for her as well, because it's like a mugger's dream, really, that situation. This is another aspect about it. I think it's not particularly good for old people.
It's a big impact for old people, not just mobile phones, but also the internet online generally, right? It's very, very difficult. I know that it's the same with my mum. She has to go into the bank. I sometimes go with her. There's a whole range of issues in terms of how you do things. I mean, everyone's getting their phone stolen. That's the other thing. But there's also all sorts of things happening, right? There's a reason why hacking and data breaches and all of those concerns, they happen regularly, right? We see them consistently. There's also a case of ongoing fraud and a number of issues like that. I mean, the thing is, in a way, it's a technocrat's dream that you have everything seamlessly done. Look, technology is fantastic. At Together, we're not Luddites. We love the harnessing of technology and innovation. In fact, we need much more of that in society. But the question is where the relationship to the state and surveillance and scrutiny and all of those things come in. And that's of significant concern. We've seen in the arena of bars and clubs so much impositions around licensing and around the public, ever increasing security, as though somehow the public are all to be feared. So it's a problem for older people. It's a problem for everyone in society. And we're saying people should get involved with Together to challenge that a bit more.
All right, mate. Good stuff. Thank you very much, Alan. All the best. You take care. Thank you very much for coming on the show this evening. Now, a government spokesperson has said nothing in the government's approach will make digital identity services mandatory and people will be able to continue using existing non-digital forms of ID. When people choose to use them, our digital identity trust framework will help digital identity services prove that they follow stringent security and privacy breach law. It's a question of how much you trust all this stuff, isn't it? And for me personally, I tend to be a little bit sceptical. But coming up at 10 p.m. Well, big questions over what these hundreds, if not thousands, of Syrians who've taken to the British streets over the weekend were actually celebrating. Were they celebrating radical Islamism? And, well, apparently, as well, this is the group that were once aligned with al-Qaeda. They've come to power in Syria. So, could they maybe go back home and help rebuild their country if they have that kind of ideology? I'll give you my take at 10 p.m. But first, more than 1 million pensioners are currently skipping meals because they're worried about having enough money to keep the heating on. That is, of course, after the PM sparked outrage by ripping up their winter fuel payments. So has this Labour government left pensioners to starve and freeze this winter? And I have got a musical surprise for you, something that may go to Christmas #1. Stay tuned.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Now, is this a good idea? Because you are leaving yourself open to all sorts of criticism as a family if you let cameras into your house.
I have to admit I had big reservations, and Jacob gave all his children the choice whether to appear or not, and I discussed it with my own because we were in Somerset over the summer and the camera crews were around, and in fact me and my husband decided that our children would not be in it at all.
Right.
The two younger ones didn't really know what the question was, and the 13-year-old was happier to not be in the spotlight. And they never have been. And I think that's where Jacob took less of a risk, because his children have been photographed left, right and centre from the day they were born, in newspapers, in cartoons, taking the mickey out of their names and whatever.
Are they going to become the new Kardashians? Does your brother even know who Kim Kardashian is?
Oh, I'm not entirely sure I do. So, yeah, she's very famous for being quite curvaceous, I believe. Yeah. But I don't think they're anywhere near that category. I've seen a couple of articles where they do a compare and contrast, and they don't really match up. But I think this is quite from the bits I've seen, quite a light-hearted look at a very different type of lifestyle to most people, but at the people behind it who are, you know, normal human beings.
And Jacob's wife there we saw talking. What is she like? What are we expecting to hear from her?
Helena's brilliant. I had the great pleasure of introducing them as adults.
Your fault.
It's all my fault that there are now 6 extra Rees-Moggs around. But she is a fantastic, fun, but very, very steely, as you say, woman who knows her own mind.
I think she's going to be the star of the show.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Coming up, should we allow people to celebrate an Islamist regime on the streets of Britain? But first, over 1 million pensioners are skipping meals this winter because of financial worries. That's according to research by the charity Age UK. Well, the charity's latest report... Well, the charity's latest report revealed that more than 7 million pensioners say they are turning down their heating or reducing the hours that they are actually doing so. The shocking new data comes after the government's decision to scrap the winter fuel payments. The Prime Minister has continued to insist the cut is necessary. But unfortunately for
I don't want to cut the winter fuel allowance. I don't think anybody government wants to do that. But we've got to fix the foundations of our economy. And that's what this is all about, making sure that we fix the foundations. And then, having done that, that we can build a better future that pensioners and so many other people voted for in this election. So this is a tough decision, not a decision I want to make.
Yes, but unfortunately for Starmer, this song may well top the charts this Christmas.
We'll be freezing this Christmas without fuel at home. It'll be freezing this Christmas while Keir Starmer's warm.
Well, there we go. I'm joined now by former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie. Kelvin, what do you make of this? Do you think that song may well end up at #1?
Well, it depends. I doubt whether the BBC will be plugging it. So that will be a disadvantage, because the lefties on the BBC will be quite pleased to think that we're paying more tax, so that the impossible problem for Starmer going forward from today and for the rest of his prime ministership, however many months it lasts, is that the truth is he took the money off the pensioners and he handed it to the train drivers. And it's that issue which is going to hang around his neck. It will be a millstone for the whole of the period that he's at number 10. It's a massive mistake. And why he made it is beyond me, because he could have worked out, actually, we don't need to give it to rich pensioners or wealthy pensioners, potentially like me, just leave me out of it, right? But give it to those people who actually need it. 300 quid is a lot of money. And not only that, you will have noticed now, as we've all noticed, that our heating bills right in the middle of winter are now going up and are likely to go up again in January. Can I tell you the outcome of this? That and the fact that local councils are being overridden by central government, right? Angela Rayner said so yesterday. The answer to that will be, I expect Labour to take the most incredible kicking in the May council elections for the first time as old people turn out in their hundreds and thousands and millions to give a bloody nose to this government. It will be a remarkable political revolution.
I think that those council elections are frankly going to be a referendum on this government, aren't they? They are. And we'll wait and see what happens there. Kelvin, obviously Labour say, well, we had to fill this black hole. But unfortunately, £11 million we've just found down the back of the sofa today to give to an Islamist rebel who is now in charge of Syria. So this black hole is starting to look more like fantasy. As Ethel struggles to turn the heating on this winter and puts on a third pair of gloves in her own living room, I bet she'll be grateful that the latest Middle Eastern Islamist has got 11 million quid in his back pocket.
Yes, almost everything that happens now will be seen through the prism of denying our really poor old folk. I'm not talking about, people lucky enough to have made a few bob. I'm talking about those that are challenged in life. 300 quid makes quite a bit of difference. I cannot understand it, where 1 billion that cost, whereas we're prepared to give 10 billion to state employees. It is a shocking moment.
We've got to go. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's Kelvin Mackenzie there. When I come back, you will not believe how Labour have managed to remove another deterrent for people coming across the channel. Stay tuned.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Clear skies overnight across the north will allow things to turn very frosty. Also some thick fog patches for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Further south, staying largely dry but quite cloudy. This weather front still generating quite a few showers across the far southeast, parts of Essex, even as far north as Suffolk. Those showers feeding in across Kent, the London area, into parts of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. But away from the southeast, it is generally dry. Clearer skies here. That's where the fog is going to thicken up. Southwest Scotland, also western parts of Northern Ireland. That fog likely to be pretty dense and linger well into tomorrow. For England and Wales, we'll keep a lot of cloud. That'll keep the temperatures generally above freezing. But a wet start for parts of the southeast. Still a few showers coming in, particularly across parts of Kent, feeding all the way down across the Channel Islands too. But elsewhere, generally dry and cloudy for England and Wales. Some frost across Cumbria and certainly further north and west across Scotland and Northern Ireland. The frost widespread and some dense patches of fog. Parts of the central belt, particularly to the west, southwest Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. And where that fog forms through the night, it could be very slow to clear tomorrow. Quite a lot of cloud across the far north. Some drizzly rain heading its way towards Shetland. The showers in the southeast, well, still a few feeding in, but tending to fizzle out generally through the day. Some breaks in the cloud for North Wales, northwest England. Bit of sunshine possible here. Temperatures 6 or 7 Celsius. Still feeling cold with that wind coming in from the North Sea across the southeast. That's still there on Wednesday, as is the possibility of the odd shower across the south. Fog again for parts of southern Scotland and Northern Ireland, and again it could last all day. If it does, temperatures will struggle to get above freezing. But away from the fog, much of Scotland, Northern Ireland having another sunny day on Wednesday. Most of England and Wales staying fairly cloudy. Bye for now.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight. Well, these people are openly celebrating radical Islamists coming to power in Syria. Here's an idea. Why don't they go back and help rebuild their country? And
today, the Prime Minister has announced an additional £11 million of humanitarian support for Syrians.
Comical Lammy there announcing that we've just given the Syrian jihadis £11 million in aid to help get them kick-started. In other news,
we have an extensive challenge with the backlog, meaning that asylum accommodation is too often using very expensive hotels.
Well, Labour's just removed another deterrent, so they are going to let illegal immigrants stay longer in hotels so they don't end up homeless. Hotels like these.
NHS! We've got the NHS in here.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, those people aren't going to be cold this winter, are they? But the elderly will.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while Keir Starmer's warm.
Well, there is a bid to get freezing this Christmas to #1. It's a parody, and it's by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. On my panel tonight, it's Daily Express's columnist Carol Malone. We've got journalist Benjamin Butterworth and broadcaster Esther Krakow. Oh, and here's New York this Christmas. Looks lovely, doesn't it? Yeah. Here's Paris this Christmas. Lovely again. Here's Sadiq Khan's London. What a total shambles. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. If you're celebrating an Islamist regime, why don't you go and live under one? Next.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines. It's just gone 10 o'clock. The Prime Minister has said Britain and its allies must be intensely focused on the transition to a new regime in Syria amid fears of a resurgence of Islamic State. It comes as the UK has paused all Syrian asylum claims. It follows France, Germany and Austria saying they would pause decisions on asylum requests from Syrian citizens until the political situation in the Middle Eastern country became clearer. Speaking today, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper confirmed the UK would be assessing the situation.
know that the situation in Syria is moving extremely fast after the fall of the Assad regime. We have seen some people returning to Syria, but we also have a very fast-moving situation that we need to closely monitor. And that is why, like Germany, like France and like other countries, we have paused asylum decisions on cases from Syria while the Home Office reviews and monitors the current situation.
In other news, a 15-year-old girl was stabbed to death while standing up for a friend who had wanted to get back her teddy bear from her ex-boyfriend. The court heard how 18-year-old Hassan Sentamu lashed out at Elian Andam with a kitchen knife in a fit of white-hot anger in Croydon town centre. Sentamu, who was 17 years old at the time, has admitted manslaughter but denies Elian's murder, claiming a loss of control because he has autism. Now, Edinburgh City Council leader Cammy Day has resigned from his post following reports he sent Ukrainian refugees messages asking about their sexual preferences. The Labour politician had already been suspended by his party as police investigate a complaint against him of inappropriate behaviour. The Sunday Mail reported he sent unsolicited messages to Ukrainian refugees who said they felt unable to rebuff him. Premier League referee David Coote has been sacked after an investigation into his conduct. Professional Game Match Officials Limited made the statement after a video emerged last month of 42-year-old Coote appearing to make derogatory remarks about Liverpool and their former manager, Jurgen Klopp. And Donald Trump has said the King is fighting very hard as the monarch continues to receive cancer treatment. It comes after the US President-elect met the Prince of Wales in Paris following the ceremonial reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral on Saturday. Mr. Trump told the New York Post that the pair discussed Charles and the Princess of Wales's health, with both being diagnosed with cancer this year. Mr. Trump revealed Princess Kate is doing well and the King is fighting very hard, adding that William loves his father and he loves his wife, so it was sad. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome along. Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are in a right mess over Syria. Here's the Prime Minister saying it's too early to take the Syrian rebels off the banned terror list.
No decision is pending at all on this. It is far too early. At the moment, the focus has to be on talking to our allies, making sure that this is an opportunity for Syria, and therefore we have to work to make sure that it's a peaceful opportunity. Talking to our allies, making sure that civilians are protected, making sure that minorities are protected, and being absolutely clear in that red line in relation to terrorism and violence.
OK, well, some info now about the new Syrian government, then. So they are Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, to their mates. The founder of HTS, al-Jalani, was once a participant in the Iraqi insurgency against the US as a member of the group that eventually became ISIS. So they endorsed al-Qaeda. They are believed to execute people for blasphemy and adultery, and they are unconfirmed reports now that they've started rounding up some of the 750,000 or so Christians in Syria. Today, Keir Starmer has just given them £11 million as some kind of goodwill gesture. Brilliant. Now, this guy obviously struggles to identify a terror group when he sees one. After all, he was the lawyer that represented Islamists Hizb ut-Tahrir, wasn't he? And tried to get their ban overturned in Germany. But the real problem for Sir Keir Starmer, I'm afraid, is this. Thousands taking to the streets in Manchester and elsewhere in the country to celebrate the Islamists in charge of Syria. They did the same in London. In fact, they actually partied well into the night in our capital city. And this is by no means just an England thing. They did the same up in Scotland as well. All right, now, those people might simply be celebrating the fall of Assad, but they might be celebrating the beginning of an Islamist regime. And if they are, then Keir Starmer has to face the fact that we have tens of thousands of people in Britain who might now be openly supporting ISIS-style jihadis. Bashar al-Assad was clearly a terrible man. They found evidence of his torture chambers, including some kind of iron press that they seemingly used to crush prisoners with. They found young children in prison cells. He gassed his own people. We all know this. The guy was a monster. He was horrendous, OK? And I can understand why people would want to celebrate his downfall. But I think they're also celebrating this new regime, aren't they? And this regime is basically a bunch of militant jihadis who are likely to persecute and execute Christians, as well as other minorities. And if people in Britain are celebrating that, then they have no place in this country. Let's get thoughts from my panel now. We've got journalist and broadcaster Esther Krakow there. We've also got fellow journalists as well, Benjamin Butterworth, and Daily Express columnist Carol Malone. Carol, when you see pictures or videos like that of people celebrating, do you think they're celebrating the fall of Assad, or do you worry that they're celebrating an Islamist regime?
Yeah, I don't think they are yet. I mean, on VE Day, Churchill said, let's enjoy a brief period of rejoicing, and I think that's what they're doing. They're not thinking about the consequences of what's happening. But we have to look at who's now. This is now run by Islamists. These people are jihadis. Jihadis do not change their spots that quickly, and they're promising all sorts of stuff. We're told by various analysts around the world that they've changed. They're moderating their views. They're talking about diversity and inclusion and
the rainbow flag up and down.
A bit of that, yeah, they'll no doubt have that. But of course they have to do that because they want to be accepted. They want to establish their rule. So they want money, they want allies. They've already, Muggins Lammy's already given them 11 million quid on day one. So that's obviously going to happen. I won't repeat the insult, don't worry, Patrick. But, you know... It's after 9 p.m. But I just think it is a worry, you know. They are jihadists. And, you know, it is... You know, we had Pat McFadden today, the Cabinet Secretary, stupidly saying that it will depend on what happens, but he says, we'll make a decision, we'll make it quickly. No, matey, you don't make it quickly. You wait and see what happens. You wait and see what pans out over the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. Because if the Islamists do take over and they're chucking out everybody else, we have a problem.
One thing that we've found already from this particular incident, yet again, Benjamin, is this Labour government are clearly incompetent.
Stupid.
This morning, Pat McFadden's, Pat my dog, as he's been nicknamed here, you know, doing the rounds on all the morning media there, going, oh yeah, no, well we might review it. Maybe they're jihadis, maybe they're not. We'll see. But we've got another review. And then you've got Keir Starmer saying, well, we haven't made a decision. Then in the meantime, we've given them 11 million quid. Then David Lammy came out, and obviously Yvette Cooper hadn't told him that we'd stopped taking refugees. So our foreign secretary's in the House of Commons, and he thinks maybe we still are. This is a circus, isn't it?
Well, it's quite the rebranding of some Al-Qaeda leaders. You know, you're going to have sort of a Mandelson makeover of new jihadi for a new Syria.
Yeah.
That's the kind of direction... You know, that's how they're talking about them, as though they couldn't possibly have done anything wrong before.
Oh, we've got to give it time.
Exactly. I mean, look... You know, I can understand the relief of the Syrian people, because 54 years is most of the lives of every Syrian alive, and to be rid of that evil family that killed so many of them, millions of them, you know, I agree with Carol about that moment of relief. But I think there's probably an international naivety, as though you've got these moderate Islamists.
Yeah.
You know, these are people that...
That's a paradox.
Is there such I was going to say...
Is there such a thing as a moderate Islamist?
Precisely. That's you know, that's my mocking comment. And the prisons are being emptied en masse. Hamas and what horrific circumstances, innocent people have been held in. But also there are thousands of Islamic State terrorists in those prisons.
50,000 in the east.
And one of them is Shamima Begum in the north, in the SDF-controlled north. And so are these people going to be released? Are they going to put pressure on this new government to be an Islamic State? That is the question. We might fear what's happened.
This is the crude reality of international relations, which is whatever works best in our interests is what we should do. And I think all too often, the government and particularly our current crop of politicians who don't have a decent grasp of reality, get so fluffy and rah-rah and mishelp these, and for the sake of international for the sake of Britain and the people that you're elected to protect. Now, these jihadis this particular jihadist group, if you're looking at the rhetoric from the last 48 hours, is kind of giving the group a nationalist makeover. So they're saying, we're for rebuilding and nation-building Syria, so more nation-building, less sort of foreign-sponsored terrorism. And I actually think that's something that could work in their interest and ours as well. So far as you just keep a lid on all your terrorists and keep everything you want to do within the four corners of your state, that's fine. I mean, the Taliban is working with the Russian government, for example, on anti-terrorism measures in Russia to root out a lot of the terrorism.
But there are. Can we just say there are?
Do we think people were right to celebrate the installation of this Islamist regime here in Britain, though?
We're right to...
They were right. When we saw those things that we saw there in the streets,
But of course they're going
to celebrate.
They're going to rejoice. But people should remember there's lots of echoes here of what happened in Afghanistan. The Taliban pretended they were a completely reformed regime. They said they would protect women's rights. They wouldn't take revenge on the people who worked with the coalition. They killed the people who worked with the coalition forces and women last week in Afghanistan. Now they can't train to be doctors. They can't be treated by male doctors. They have no rights whatsoever. And that's my fear here.
I mean, I was going to say, I interviewed one of the leaders of the Taliban the night that they took Kabul, and every question I asked him, he said, we'll protect women's rights, we'll protect education. Yeah. Of course, as anticipated, it was complete nonsense. But that's what they do, not least because they want international aid, money they desperately need in these fragile circumstances. But what I would say is that the reason this is a day for celebration is because the decades of money, billions of pounds that Iran has spent on its axis of evil to try and suffocate Israel has gone down the pan in 2 weeks. The way Israel has acted to take out Hezbollah and Hamas and Assad and weaken Russia is extraordinary. And we have had over a year of supposed Western allies caving in, saying that, Israel shouldn't do it. This is a day of celebration for Israel to have weakened Iran and its Islamist extremists.
We have also had week after week after week of people, in my view, celebrating Hamas on the streets of Britain. And this is why, whilst I've said it numerous times, I can understand why people would just be happy that Assad's gone, right? And you would want to get out on the streets and do that. This is why I'm a little bit sceptical of that, and why I wonder whether or not some of those people are happy that they've got a kind of quotes-unquote genuine Islamist regime now, and that's the concern.
Do you know what the real worry here is as well, Patrick? There are lots of weapons in Syria. They have chemical weapons, they have munitions, they have bombs, they have all sorts of things. And that's going to be in the hands now of this Islamic State. Yeah. And they are not afraid to use those weapons. And that is the really scary thing. I mean, Assad used them on his own people. Disgraceful. But this group may well use it on the rest of the world once they're established. And what's happened over the past fortnight hasn't just happened. This has been 4 or 5 years in the planning. And how come that our intelligence services didn't know about it? And the ex-head of MI6 has actually said today, this opens a whole can of worms about IS. If these Islamic people start coming over here, Europe is in big trouble again.
That's true, but these splintered groups are so much weaker than the centrally funded Iranian operations, and I think that's why we should be glad.
I should just say, just to return to how this government has dealt with this so far today. Now, we've been getting pretty clear messages from the Germans, from the Austrians, from the Swiss, from the French so far. We have had a bag of mixed messages
It's almost
from
like
our
dealing
government.
with student activists, really.
Yes.
With all their PPE qualifications and being special advisors by the age of 23 and all of that. Look, the government response has been disjointed because they don't... The thing is, they're not realistic. They're not practical. I mean, Keir Starmer said what? He told the new leaders of HTS, renounce terror and violence. Yeah, I'm sure they'll get right on that. Yeah. This former Al-Qaeda terrorist group. Well, you got it, Keir. I mean, but it's completely tone deaf. The reality is, what is in British interest? Of course, you don't want the region to explode into violence or you descend into being sort of this balkanized mess of various terrorist groups. But at the end of the day, we also don't want to see a repeat of the Iraq War, where we think the US and the UK thinks we're going to go on a nation-building operation and spend trillions of pounds to naught, basically. So I think it's just what is in our interest. So far as this is contained, obviously no weapons of mass destruction, and some decent nation-building goes on, I'm happy.
But Patrick's been talking about the other countries today. Starmer's totally out of the loop. You know, some of the world leaders were in Paris at the weekend, and we're talking about this all together. Where was our guy? He was in Saudi Arabia. Nothing's happening there. That's where he was. He's always in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he is completely out of the loop. And to pretend that we are going to do stuff, we're not, because we don't know what anybody else is doing. We don't know what we're doing, actually.
But look, there has been. I think what will be a pretty devastating blow for the competence or perceived competence of this government at the moment was that David Lammy...
Who perceives this government?
Well, some people. It was that David... there you go.
Yeah.
Was that David Lammy was in the House of Commons earlier and he didn't even know that the Home Secretary had banned visas for or asylum claims.
And Angela Rayner was talking at the weekend. She was asked about her response to Syria. You should have heard it. It was just... She was terrified because she didn't know what to say. I mean, really, she didn't know what to say. And that is frightening.
Yeah, it is a bit because it could be more serious than this, and then they are leading us. But no doubt some people think they're doing a great job, like Benjamin does. So anyway, moving on. It's time now for our greatest, biggest ever Great British Giveaway. I don't know why I can never say that. Anyway, this year, your chance to win £50,000 in cold, hard, tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away. Here's how all of that money could be yours.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British Giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, coming up, I'll have the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Oh, and could the Woke Brigade be about to cancel everyone's favourite Christmas film, Love Actually? Yeah, but first...
We have an extensive challenge with the backlog, meaning that asylum accommodation is too often using very expensive hotels.
Well, she promised to end the use of migrant hotels, but today it emerged that the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is now going to double the amount of time that successful asylum seekers can stay in emergency accommodation. Yes, sir. More and more of your taxis are going to pay for migrants to put their feet up in nice, warm hotels this winter. So, has this Labour government now betrayed you when it comes to migration? The research director at the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates, joins me.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Last orders at the bar, and I'm joined by Geordie Shore star Ricky Guanaccio. Have I said that right? Is that Italian?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Italian. Your parents Italian? Is it?
Pronunciation was pretty much perfect.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So look, mate. Yeah, Geordie Shore. I've never watched it, mate. So I do apologise about that. But I know these reality TV shows are making big stars out of the people, making you famous, making you loads of money. Is it worth it?
For me personally, yeah. It's been a hell of a career. Been a hell of a lot of fun doing it, ups and downs, but first and foremost, money-wise, yeah.
That's good. So people stopping in the street, you being famous, wanting the autograph and all. How do you cope with that, Ricky?
Well, when we first started doing the show, I mean, we got our show off the back of Jersey Shore in America. We never expected the fame that we got, and being one of the biggest reality TV shows in the UK and now the world. It's in 150 odd countries worldwide. Wow. It's pretty crazy. It's when you're living in houses. I mean, for example, Geordie Shore and Love Island's probably the same as well. When you're living in villas and you're living in houses, the arguing side sort of plays on your mind. You've got to deal with all that. It's a hard place to be. It's a pressure cooker.
You're living in one of these villas, Ricky, or one of these houses. Do you ever wake up one morning and think, "What am I doing here?"
When I first started, yes. Yeah. Now I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't mind all the, there's no emotion connecting me now with filming. It's kind of like I go in there, it's fun, or it's, it's dramatic, whatever it may be.
Have you ever worked behind a bar?
No.
No?
Yeah, for not a long period of time. My mum and dad had a...
Well, I can
definitely messed this one up.
Yeah, I can actually believe that you've never worked behind a bar.
Yeah, so my parents sacked us when I worked in the restaurant.
Well, obviously, I mean, you wouldn't get a job here with a pint like that, would you?
Do you want it?
No, mate, no.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. All of tomorrow's newspaper front pages are hurtling your way shortly, including, apparently, the fact that we might be about to cancel Love Actually. Yeah, I'll tell you why in a second or two. But first, there are warnings tonight that Labour's election pledge to end the use of migrant hotels could be hanging in the balance after the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, doubled the time that successful asylum seekers can spend in migrant hotels from 28 days to 56 days. That's despite the previous Tory government trying to reduce the maximum time a migrant could spend in emergency accommodations to a week. Now, during the election, Labour put, ending the use of migrant hotels at the heart of their manifesto. But Home Office figures published last week showed the number of migrants being held in hotels has actually increased by 20% in the 3 months to September after Labour won the general election. I'm very pleased to be joined now by the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates. Robert, great to have you on the show. Where's the deterrent now? The only deterrent was that if you came to Britain and you were accepted as an asylum seeker, that you could end up homeless. But now that's gone as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, so, I mean, Labour are doing a pretty good job at making sure that those very few kind of things that would have made asylum seekers and ah about whether it was worth making that trip across the Channel have been well and truly scrapped, and I think we are now heading towards a situation where the Labour government are doing all they can to ease the passage of those into the welfare system, onto our social housing ladder, and all manner of benefits that get eschewed from that. I think what we need to realise here is that there is actually no need to increase the time period that those migrants are able to stay, those refugees are able to stay in these hotels. We already have an incredibly well-funded refugee, migrant, charity, open border complex in this country that are clambering over themselves to help these people find housing. It's the kind of support that, I think those thousands of homeless veterans that are on our streets would be absolutely cock-a-hoop to find themselves in receipt of. I think those families that are on the breadline and facing homelessness as well would be really eager to see.
Let's just think about that. It's a really good point. Let's just think about that. So you've got homeless veterans out there in the country. Very difficult to get accurate data on that, but, a good number of years ago now, the Mirror did a survey on this and they found there was probably roughly between about 4,000 and 5,000 of them. So it's about that. You've also got people who may be suffering from domestic abuse, who need to flee their home, everything. Now, they will not be put up in 3- or 4-star hotels for whatever it is, 56, 58 days here now, whilst the state desperately tries to find them some social housing. They'll have to go to some kind of shelter, they'll be out on the street, they'll have to sofa surf with friends. I mean, it's a question of priorities, isn't it?
Well, exactly, and it's the government, yet again, helping everyone else apart from the British. I think it's important to realise as well that this is actually only going to really compound the hotel usage. You know, we are already seeing that inability to deport those that have had their asylum applications rejected, staying in hotels long after they should have been removed from the country. We're seeing an increase in those that are coming over the channel and being put up in those hotels as well. And if we are to go down this route of actually increasing the time through which migrants are eligible to stay in this accommodation, it really is a case of more and more hotels are going to be opened. It's inevitable that they're going to have to be open. And that really is another broken promise that the Labour Party have committed on the British public. Because let's not forget, a key promise during the general election was that they would end this fiasco. You know, it was something that had proliferated under the Tories and blighted communities across the Red Wall in particular. But now it seems that the Labour Party are reversing on yet another promise and going down this route of effectively entrenching hotels into the asylum system and making them more solid and making their presence in that a more essential part of the process.
They say that they've inherited this mess. And they have, I suppose. They've inherited this mess and that they've managed to deport, more people at this stage in their particular tenure than the Tories did for, a very, very long time. Do you buy any of that? Because when we look at what they're actually doing, scrapping Rwanda on day one, then this thing here with the hotels set up, looking to increase the legal aid fees for legal staff so that they can process more claims, which I think inevitably means that we'll end up taking more asylum seekers. Things like... I'm very sceptical about the new housing, for example. OK, so we're going to rush through a load of planning applications and see all these houses popping up everywhere, whether it's the Green Belt or just generally. Well, who's going to go and live in those houses? And Labour say they've inherited this mess. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the Conservatives really did make a hash of the issue. Obviously, Robert Jenrick, when he was Immigration Minister, did introduce those measures that would mean that an asylum seeker that had a successful application would have only 28 days. That was bringing it down from the 56 that it had originally been. But I think what this really is from the Labour government is this is a pitch rolling. This is a gesture from them to kind of show to those refugee charities that have got their ear that we are listening to you. We're well aware of the plight that are facing these asylum seekers. And I think that inevitably, the logical conclusion of that is that they start then pushing these asylum seekers to the front of the social housing queue. They start emphasising the plight that these people are facing and how it would be a blot on the name of Great Britain if they were to not be put up in housing. And before you know it, they are, pushing British families out of the way, pushing those homeless veterans that we were talking about out of the way and getting to the front of the queue.
I think it's a really interesting point that you make there, because it actually does indicate who they're listening to, this government. If they were listening to, dare I say, maybe you and I, or a lot of other people out there, the kind of people that, that you see out and about, on the street and talk to you down the pub or whatever, then I would suggest that they would never have done this. But it indicates that they are listening to things like those refugees charities. They are listening to those kind of pro-illegal migrant groups. And that's the direction of travel. That's actually crafting the decisions that they are making, even though maybe their rhetoric might be, at times, aligned with what some people on the right would agree with. But thank you very much. Great to have you on the show, mate. Well done, and I will no doubt see you again very, very soon. That is Robert Bates there, who is the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Just to read this out now, it's a Home Office spokesperson, so we've inherited enormous pressures in the asylum system. We remain absolutely committed to ending the use of hotels as we ramp up returns of failed asylum seekers. Well, OK, actions speak louder than words, though. Coming up, the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. I'll bring them to you next. And... well, you will not believe this, but in the last few minutes it's emerged that that film, Love Actually, could be about to get cancelled. I'll tell you why next.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Clear skies overnight across the north will allow things to turn very frosty. Also some thick fog patches for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Further south, staying largely dry but quite cloudy. This weather front still generating quite a few showers across the far southeast, parts of Essex, even as far north as Suffolk. Those showers feeding in across Kent, the London area, into parts of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. But away from the southeast, it is generally dry. Clearer skies here. That's where the fog is going to thicken up. Southwest Scotland, also western parts of Northern Ireland. That fog likely to be pretty dense and linger well into tomorrow. For England and Wales, we'll keep a lot of cloud. That'll keep the temperatures generally above freezing. But a wet start for parts of the southeast. Still a few showers coming in, particularly across parts of Kent, feeding all the way down across the Channel Islands too. But elsewhere, generally dry and cloudy for England and Wales. Some frost across Cumbria and certainly further north and west across Scotland and Northern Ireland. The frost widespread and some dense patches of fog. Parts of the central belt, particularly to the west, southwest Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. And where that fog forms through the night, it could be very slow to clear tomorrow. Quite a lot of cloud across the far north. Some drizzly rain heading its way towards Shetland. The showers in the southeast, well, still a few feeding in, but tending to fizzle out generally through the day. Some breaks in the cloud for North Wales, northwest England. Bit of sunshine possible here. Temperatures 6 or 7 Celsius. Still feeling cold with that wind coming in from the North Sea across the southeast. That's still there on Wednesday, as is the possibility of the odd shower across the south. Fog again for parts of southern Scotland and Northern Ireland, and again it could last all day. If it does, temperatures will struggle to get above freezing, but away from the fog, much of Scotland, Northern Ireland having another sunny day on Wednesday. Most of England and Wales staying fairly cloudy. Bye for now.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Pantry Christys tonight. Now, I've got all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, so here we go. Let's have a little look, shall we? Let's start with the Metro. This is a ridiculous and devastating story. Stabbed to death for a teddy bear. A schoolgirl was killed by being knifed to death by her friend's ex-boyfriend in a row over returning a teddy bear. That is what a court has been told. Let's go to the Daily Telegraph. Asylum cases on hold amid terror fear. Well, goodness gracious me. I wish that had been the headline about 5 years ago, but alas, here we are. Britain at risk from jihadists returning after Syrian leaders' downfall, security sources say. It's a slightly interesting time for Keir Starmer as well, because he's just met the Qataris. Now he's got the Saudis round. Apparently, he wants to go and watch a football match with the Saudi Arabians. Presumably, I don't know if Arsenal are playing Newcastle anytime soon, but anyway. There we go. Offenders are also allowed to complete sentences by working from home. That's good. But you know who's decided that or will enforce that? Civil servants who are working from home.
Of course.
And then anyway. Go to The Guardian. Hope and despair in Assad's human slaughterhouse. The race to free prisoners that the brutal regime tortured in the underground prison. UK suspend Syrians' asylum applications. They've also gone for that. The Daily Mail now. Syria chaos is a chronic threat to our security. This is a warning from ex-MI6 boss over ISIS prisoners who could flee. Well, quite. And we'll just round us off with The Independent. Families crowd Assad torture jail after regime falls. Relatives hunt for their loved ones who have been missing under the Syrian dictatorship. As Britain says, the collapse is a humiliation for Iran and Russia, but doesn't guarantee peace. So there we go. Now, in other news, The Telegraph is reporting tonight that ministers are forging ahead with plans to use electric vehicles in the army, despite warnings from military grandees that they could put soldiers at risk. So the Ministry of Defence will start testing battlefield electric vehicles next year in an expansion of plans first proposed by the former Conservative government, now, you know, spearheaded through by this Labour government. Well, I don't know about you, Carol, but I can see a few problems with this.
What's so going to happen? Because if you're the enemy, it's going to make your task really easy, because all you have to do is seek out the chargers in the desert and blow them up, and then you've taken out probably about 7 tanks in a oneer. It's just the stupidest thing I have ever heard in my life. But it's so typical of this government. It's just so typical. You know, our defences badly need boosting, so what do? They give us EV tanks. They're never going to work. They're just not going to work.
Yeah, this isn't just any massacre, Benjamin. This is a sustainable massacre.
Ah.
Very good. How long did that take?
Literally seconds.
I mean, says the man who thinks up line spends a day thinking up his big line. Anyway, go on.
Look, I mean...
we still don't know what it is yet, do we?
Come on, electric tanks!
Well, if they can charge them enough that they can go to battle and come back,
then
that would be
but we know that doesn't work.
You're smiling while
you get a 200-mile range in an electric car, and it's about 130, so you're stuffed.
I mean, there is a problem that right now you can...
That's all right on the M6.
You can barely
it's
drive
not
to
good
Cornwall.
in a war zone.
Yeah, you can barely drive to Cornwall, let alone, you know, cross Odessa.
You really have to wonder why we bothered voting, because this was introduced under these were considered under the last Conservative government.
Yeah.
But they might not have gone through with this. So that's the point. Sense might have reigned.
It's absurd. It's complete nonsense.
But here's another example of... Seriously, this is another thing where people could just go, what would be... I mean, you know, what would be an easy vote winner for someone? To say, I'm not going to make us use electric tanks.
Yeah, but what do we know about tanks? We don't, you know,
well,
there may be a very good reason.
You don't have to know anything about tanks. If they're charged electrically, that's all you need to know. And if the chargers aren't working or aren't there, it's not going to work.
So the batteries might blow up. You know, a lot of EV, the problem with EV...
They're probably, Ed Miliband's probably pushed it through.
And blowing up and being...
Well, we have to get the batteries...
In California.
We have to get the batteries from the countries that we're probably going to end up at war with.
Yeah, you have to get them from China first.
Yeah.
And then
China, Afghanistan, you know, parts of Africa, like, you know...
And imagine trying to recycle a tank battery. What do you do with that? Where do you put that?
We want to destroy the enemy, not destroy the planet. So this might be good news.
No, it is not good news.
Well, there we go. It makes people feel better. It makes the lefties feel better about themselves, and they send people off to war that, well, at least we're not damaging the environment. Yeah. Anyway, now, every year, Norway sends a Christmas tree to Britain, and this is allegedly a sign of friendship. Right? I'm not convinced this is a sign of friendship.
It's a declaration of war.
It's a declaration of war,
isn't it? A declaration of war.
That was your line.
Look, this particular tree, and can I also just say every single tree they've sent us last few years has got rubbish reviews. So
can I just say, you're ungrateful. You're taking the mick out of a really generous gesture from Norway. They have sent us a tree since 1947 as appreciation of our help during the war. Now, they might grow different kind of trees from us. They might have had a bad 3 or 4 or 5 years with the growing of trees.
Okay.
So, but the thing is, they send it, they pay for it, they get it over here. I mean, be grateful.
All right. Well, look, hey, so people think it looks like a cucumber, Carol.
Well, they might.
You can make your own minds up.
Well,
at
it
home.
might.
You can make your own minds up at home.
People savaging it.
I think last year or the year before. I mean, it looked like a toothpick.
Yeah, you could see trunk.
But maybe that's the kind of trees they're growing in Norway these days.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But we can all agree, though, that it's been beaten by this one from New York, can't we? I think there we go.
Yeah, yes.
That's a bit tacky.
Look, come on, proper.
No, that's gorgeous, actually.
That's absolutely.
I've been there and seen those trees every year. They're fantastic.
Fabulous.
The start
and here is the one in Lafayette in Paris. And
that's not a real one, is it?
Oh, but that's cool.
Yeah, I like
that. That's amazing.
Well,
it's not stunning
real.
though. It's look at how it takes your breath away. It's nice. You know?
Well, the thing is, if London wants a better tree, maybe London should pay for a better tree.
Absolutely not. We want nice gifts.
Well, there you go.
We just
there you go.
you out.
So don't complain about the Norway's free tree.
Nothing tells you enough about Esther that she's not paying, but she wants it to be the best.
Exactly. No, I walked past it by accident once, and I just thought, what on earth is this?
But
what did we do?
There are other trees in London that are beautiful. It's just that the Trafalgar Square becomes the focus.
You know.
Do we send Norway anything?
Nothing. That's the
mind you, they're free.
Yeah.
All right. Norway has this freedom now because of us. No, but
not entirely. We helped a bit. We helped.
But can I just say, I bought Emily an advent calendar, and I thought I was doing a really nice thing, and it was one of these ones that the company's like Chocolatonia.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
Chocolatonia.
What was your problem?
Very nice. Whatever, yeah.
They've forgotten advert
full of chocolate. Anyway, so then she got round to it, and it came to window number 8 or whatever.
Well, you do it on the day, Patrick. On the day.
Well, she opened it, and there was nothing in there. And then there was a little sign that said, "Look at this," and it went, "We've left this box blank to demonstrate the unsustainability."
That's terrible.
Of the cocoa trade. And then I looked at the front of this box, and it's not called a Christmas Advent calendar. It's a countdown calendar. And there's no mention of Christmas on it anywhere. Well, so I bought my wife a woke calendar.
That's you. You're bad.
It doesn't even have bloody chocolate in it.
That's your bad.
Be single by the new year.
You should know the name of the company so you can expose it on television. You haven't even got the proper name, have you? We should be saying what it is.
That's the calendar I had last year, and it cost.
Say what it is.
Quid.
Well expensive.
Who's the company?
Tony's.
And they've skimped.
Tony's.
They've skimped on the chocolate.
You just put 15 quid.
But also, they are in the cocoa trade, aren't they?
Yes.
If they make so, we are showing what a god-awful trade this is that we're in.
It shows how much care and time and attention you put into your wife's presents. Zero.
It was just a little nice thing.
I hope she told you off.
Anyway, there we go. Right, and I will just politely say that the chocolate brand in question is not here to defend themselves, and maybe they think they're doing the right thing. Coming up, the rest of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, plus... Yes, it is everyone's favourite Christmas film, Love Actually, about to be cancelled, and I'll tell you why very shortly. Stay tuned.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Dora Carrington is not known to lots of people, and very few pieces are in public collections. So you have had a great deal of work to do to put this exhibition together.
Absolutely. It's been, next year, it will be 30 years since the last major exhibition of Carrington's work, which happened in 1995 at the Barbican Gallery. And I guess if people know Carrington's work, they might have seen the film that took place that year, that came out that year, starring Emma Thompson as Carrington and Jonathan Pryce as Lytton Strachey, who was her main kind of key relationship in her life. And that, in a way, dramatised a lot of those relationships. And so people will often know her life as much as her art. There's only 16 works in public collections. And so apart from chances such as the big billboard campaign you mentioned 10 years ago, there have been very few chances to actually see her work in the flesh. And so what this exhibition does is bring together around 80 works by Carrington and a few of her key contemporaries, providing a new generation really a chance to see and enjoy her work. She was one of the most remarkable of her generation at the Slade School of Art. She won several prizes for her drawing and her draftsmanship. And in the first room of the exhibition, we have some of the work, for example, a couple of female nudes that she painted when she was at the Slade, and they really are kind of quite outstanding.
One of the things that's been said is that in her landscapes, she's sometimes painting the human body as well as the landscape. Is that something that occurred to you? Can you stand up that?
Yes, I mean, one of her most famous paintings we have of Spain has. It's very much like you could liken it to the female form. You know, the kind of the
delicately put.
Yes.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys. Now, I've got some more front pages for you now, so here they are. It's The Sun, and it's one for the football fans. Red card for Coote. Ref sacks over Klopp rant and quotes Coke. So, footy job untenable. Apparently, the referee was caught in a series of compromising positions, and now he's gone. So let's go to the Mirror, the rat of Damascus. Foreign Secretary David Lammy says that the despot's defeat has humbled Russia and Iran. This is, of course, Assad's downfall. Too great, I'm a celebrity exclusive, says the Mirror. Colleen, all the time I'm thinking, what do I bring? I'm not a performer, it's just me. Danny says I've struggled with anxiety since I was 19.
She's not wrong there. What does she bring?
No.
Well, all right.
No, but do you know what I thought was odd about that? That although Danny won, most of the publicity and most of the chats and the quotes were about Colleen. She didn't win, she was second, runner-up, and yet she got all the publicity and all the attention, which I think is weird.
OK, well, one more front page. Search for captives who've escaped Assad's noose, and that rounds us off for our front pages there. But I did want to get onto this, because Keira Knightley has described her Love Actually cue card scene as being, quote, creepy. Now, she was pointing out that she was... Was she 17 years old at the time?
No, I think she was older than that.
No.
So what?
She was that when she made that football movie, which she was a child then, but not then.
Bend it like Beckham.
Well, anyway, it says here that Keira Knightley, I think, was 17 years old at the time of that iconic scene. She told the Los Angeles Times, but yeah, fair enough.
Yes.
Is Love Actually going to be cancelled now over
For
that?
what?
Well, creepy, stalkerish,
Well, she,
you know.
she agreed to do the film, and I'm assuming her parents agreed to let her do the film, and they saw it. I mean, they've not complained. And
the thing is, let's face it, that made her an international star, that movie.
I mean,
it really hacks me off when people like her. No, it wasn't creepy. He fancied her, and because he fancied her and she'd married his best mate, he stopped talking to her. He was quite rude to her, and he was trying to keep himself at a distance. That's what he's apologising for there. It's not a sexy, creepy thing. It's just him saying sorry for being an idiot.
I mean, so far this year now, I've seen, well, just now, calls for not necessarily Love Actually to be cancelled, but people, you know, casting quite a bit of shade on it. I heard, you know, the Band-Aid thing earlier on, about how that now should be cancelled because about lazy tropes about Africa and everything. But
the Band-Aid thing, yeah, because they were like it perpetuates negatives. Well, I think my argument is there's just better ways to and more sustainable ways to raise money.
But everyone's forgetting at the time
that ends up getting funneled by corrupt politicians or administrative costs anyway. I mean, the images are not flattering, but that's actually people's reality. They're not lying about people growing up in...
Yeah, but people are forgetting that, you know, you probably weren't around, Dan, but I remember Biafra really well, and that's what that concert was about, to help the starving people of Biafra. And it did help them. So for people to look back on it 30 years later with a different eye, go away.
But the argument is that this sort of infantilises African countries. It makes them look like they need charity when actually what they want to do is business deals.
They needed charity at the time. Biafra needed charity at the time.
That's why Ed Sheeran has said that he wouldn't have taken part in the new single had he been asked.
But that's 30. However many years on.
But also, he got dug out. He got dug out, and I'm from memory now. David Lammy was one of the people who did mention this at the time, who said that there's a white saviour complex.
It's nonsense.
But then I thought, well, actually, hang on a minute. You know, we just, that did. I mean, I forget how many. Millions of pounds were raised as a result of Live Aid, but a ridiculous amount. Well, what do? It's all very well and good for someone to sit in a room now and go, oh, well, that perpetuated negative tropes.
I don't think it's helpful to be like, oh, you bad person, you gave food to starving children. I don't think it's good to berate people who gave generously from their heart.
Completely.
I think if the argument is this is a different time and you want to have a different way of helping African countries.
Yeah, but don't
insult the people.
Don't pay on the first time. I was going to say.
All right, guys, we're going to have to get quickly now to Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. So, who's your Greatest Britain, please?
Mine's Prince William. He was pictured at the weekend at a homeless shelter called The Passage, the one that Diana took him to 30 years ago, his mum. And he met Trump at the weekend trying to re-establish the relationship that what's his name, Lammy and Starmer have cocked up big time. And he's had a tough year. You know, his wife's had cancer, he's been dealing with his kids, he's been working. He's grown into the job of our future king, I think.
All right, lovely stuff, Benjamin.
My Greatest Britain, as odd as this is Israel, because had it not been for them taking out not just Hamas, but the Hezbollah leadership, then we would not have a situation today where someone like Assad could be removed. And I think the Middle East is being redrawn, and it could be a much safer country. And Israel has taken out the trash terrorists, and the world owes them a grateful thanks.
Technically, that's not a Greatest Britain, actually. If you just don't mind me saying.
Rupert Lowe. For calling up for asking why a foreign repeat offender in his constituency has not yet been deported. I mean, this person has been charged on many drug offences and has changed his identity about 5 times.
Yeah. No, Rupert Lowe is doing some fabulous work. Actually, any investigative journalist in the country would be proud.
Don't look at us.
Yeah, no, it would be, seriously. I'm going to go for Rupert Lowe. So, yes, there we go. Who's your Union Jackass?
Angela Rayner. She wants to strip local councils and local people from having a say in what gets built in their land. This is in her quest to build 1.5 million houses, which she's never going to do. But she says that environmental concerns, wildlife concerns should not be a consideration. This woman, this government is not just going to wreck our economy, it's going to wreck our actual country.
Couldn't care less about your newts. Build some houses.
No, this is a woman who, a few years ago in Manchester, objected to a house-building programme on the basis of nesting birds. So she's a hypocrite as well. Screaming hypocrite. She's a screaming hypocrite.
My Union Jackass is the film Wicked. I would like my £19 back. It's terrible.
Is it all...
£19? Where did you watch it?
Leicester Square. Honestly, there's no plot. It's just like watching an Instagram influencer for 2 hours. It's just sort of vibes and aesthetics. When did Hollywood forget to tell stories?
God, is it as bad as everyone thought it might be?
It's the first film I've ever left before the end of the film.
No.
It's 2 hours. It might as well be like a Bollywood film.
Oof, go on then, I say who's your Jack.
Keir Starmer, who was my Union Jackass last week as well, for his diplomacy for dummies approach with Syria, calling for the new leadership to renounce terror and violence, which I'm sure they will heed.
Having not seen Wicked, but having seen a lot of Angela Rayner, I'm going to go for Angela Rayner. Purely because I think there is an element of hypocrisy, and I've got serious reservations about who is going to be living in some of these new houses.
Well, that's the point.
Yes.
People who shouldn't be here.
OK. Right, next it is Headliners, and we're going to be hearing now from Simon Evans, who is hosting this particular show. Simon, you've got quite a bit to go at here, I believe, in the front pages tomorrow. So what's on? What's on?
Well, we've got a lot to talk about, Patrick. Chiefly, of course, the new film Wicked, and how it's incredible how all the plans come together in the last 5 minutes and make sense of what appeared to be an utter dog's dinner until then. We will be looking at the arrival of liberal democracy in Syria, of course, and what that means for foreign policy from our new government. I am personally really excited about the new Google chip.
Oh, God, fantastic! I'm going to be watching. Consider me teased, Simon. So there we go. Simon Evans there with Headliners. Make sure you keep it GB News, because Headliners is always a rip-roaring way to end your evening. Thank you to my wonderful panel. Thank you to you at home or wherever you are watching or listening. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Clear skies overnight across the north will allow things to turn very frosty. Also some thick fog patches for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Further south, staying largely dry but quite cloudy. This weather front still generating quite a few showers across the far southeast, parts of Essex, even as far north as Suffolk. Those showers feeding in across Kent, the London area, into parts of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. But away from the southeast, it is generally dry. Clearer skies here. That's where the fog is going to thicken up. Southwest Scotland, also western parts of Northern Ireland. That fog likely to be pretty dense and linger well into tomorrow. For England and Wales, we'll keep a lot of cloud. That'll keep the temperatures generally above freezing. But a wet start for parts of the southeast. Still a few showers coming in, particularly across parts of Kent, feeding all the way down across the Channel Islands too. But elsewhere, generally dry and cloudy for England and Wales. Some frost across Cumbria and certainly further north and west across Scotland and Northern Ireland. The frost widespread and some dense patches of fog. Parts of the central belt, particularly to the west, southwest Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. And where that fog forms through the night, it could be very slow to clear tomorrow. Quite a lot of cloud across the far north. Some drizzly rain heading its way towards Shetland. The showers in the southeast, well, still a few feeding in, but tending to fizzle out generally through the day. Some breaks in the cloud for North Wales, northwest England. Bit of sunshine possible here. Temperatures 6 or 7 Celsius. Still feeling cold with that wind coming in from the North Sea across the southeast. That's still there on Wednesday, as is the possibility of the odd shower across the south. Fog again for parts of southern Scotland and Northern Ireland, and again it could last all day. If it does, temperatures will struggle to get above freezing, but away from the fog, much of Scotland, Northern Ireland having another sunny day on Wednesday. Most of England and Wales staying fairly cloudy. Bye for now.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Joined by international life coach Cheryl Findlay, who has joined forces with a Liverpool business owner, Kate Hill, of sustainable sportswear brand Lola Star, to empower women and inspire women across the nation. And to celebrate this partnership with the new Lola Star collection, the two will be hosting an exclusive event next Saturday.
The sportswear brand was launched after, well, your story. You lost how much weight?
So 16 stone, which is over 220 pounds, which
wow.
I know is quite significant. But during that kind of decade-long journey, I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about what it takes to be successful, to be happy, to be well, and to just live an incredible life every day.
Are you giving them goals to work towards or helping them structure their life?
Yeah, so I don't give out goals, absolutely not.